So I'm going to starting at number 12 on the way up.
And wasn't Van Halen 2 thrown together like in a couple of weeks?
So a lot of these records were. Yeah. Absolutely were. I mean, they were done. That's what makes them, to me, so great, because they're live, they're real. I mean, these early Van Halen records, that's one of the big differences to me about some of the stuff with Hagar, because in the 80s, that's when a lot of the productions changed. That's when some of the new effects came in. That's when digital recording started happening. That's when you had samples, triggers, the keyboards, all that stuff that was happening. Some of that can tend to sound at certain times dated now. Never does it sound dated, live guitar, bass, drums. That's why in my first book, I made the case that, to me, the early Van Halen albums are the equivalent of like American Led Zeppelin. And what I meant by that is, you listen to the Zeppelin records, they never sound dated. They never sound out of style. They never sound out of step with what's happening, because you're just keeping it simple. It's never going to sound wrong. It's never going to sound bad. It's never going to sound dated.
Wasn't the old story, I'm sorry to interrupt, the old story that what Ted Templeman would do when he was producing the band early on, because he wanted to capture that live feel, is he would disable the recording light, the big red light, he would turn it off or whatever, and just have the band play.
I don't know. I just know that it's magic what was captured on these records, because it's timeless in every sense of the word. So let's go to number 7. Or no, number 8. We're at number 8 right now. And this is the first time that we're going to go to an album that I always found this interesting, because guitar players tell me that for them, this is the quintessential Van Halen record. It's when Eddie started now again, I'm not a musician, so I don't know the technicalities, but he started doing different tunings. He started doing some different sounds. There was a different thing going on. To me, still sounds amazing, still as great as anything he ever did. But guitar players, when I've talked to a lot of musicians themselves, they tell me that the Fair Warning album is the greatest guitar Van Halen record, which how could they not all be? But they tell me that record, for some reason, from technical standpoint, is like the record for a lot of them. For me, one of the great songs in Van Halen's history comes from Fair Warning. It starts off soft and builds into those great crescendos. So many Van Halen songs do the same, that attitude and swagger that all the great Van Halen songs have. One of my all-time favorites is Hear About It Later. Let's do it now, Ed, from Anthony. And what's so great about Hear About It Later is the end. Ed, do we want to torture people with me doing it, or can you give them 10 seconds of that? I always love that part, man. That song has so many different cool parts to it. Hear About It Later. Fair Warning, my number 8 song. I think everybody knows the part I'm talking about, but if Ed can find it, it would be nice to just get a little taste of it.
You mean this, right?
At number 8 on the Trunk Top 20 Van Halen songs from the Fair Warning album. Number 7. We're staying with the same record. A little more Fair Warning action. Whoa, now what is happening here, ladies and gentlemen, in case you just joined us? The first 6 songs were all Sammy Hagar Van Halen songs. So if you just joined us and you're a Hagar Van Halen fan, you're like, oh, where's the love for Sammy? Well, you came in late, folks. Plenty of in the beginning of this list. 6 in a row, as a matter of fact. Ever since, we've been exclusively in the Roth zone. We continue there right now, staying with Fair Warning. I remember I was still in high school when Fair Warning came out. I saw Van Halen on the Fair Warning tour at Madison Square Garden. And again, because I was such a Kiss fan and also a huge Van Halen fan, but there was still that thing where anything that wasn't Kiss was a little bit of a threat to Kiss, even if I liked it, right? And by 81, Kiss was like a joke in the world of rock. A joke. I mean, they were dead and buried. But I was still carrying the Kiss flag very proudly and almost getting beat up for it in high school because of it, literally. But I had a teacher who, how cool is this? He was a history teacher, and he also wrote part-time for a New Jersey music paper called The Aquarian, and he was a big rock fan. And I'm still in touch with the guy to this day. His name is Bill Chamerka. And he was a huge Van Halen fan. He was my history teacher. And he would always talk to me about, he'd always rattle my cage because Kiss was so down and out at the time and couldn't even get a gig in the U.S. My heroes, and he was a Van Halen fan, and Van Halen were on top of the world at this point, just blowing up. Everyone's talking about Van Halen, 1981. I'm a junior in high school. And when Fair Warning came out, he crushed me on this because he's like, never forget, he pulls me into the classroom before the class started. He goes, "This is my teacher." That's how cool he was. He's like, you still want to talk about Kiss? Did you hear Fair Warning? Did you hear the Van Halen record? And I was like, "Mr. C, yeah, I heard it." He's like, "You listen to that first song on that record. Listen to that open of that song. That's it. That's Eddie laying down the gauntlet. Forget about it. It's over. He's the king. That's it." In front of the chalkboard, like lecturing me, like as if I failed history. But I aced rock from Mr. C. And I begrudgingly, yeah, I knew in my heart that it was great, but I was just like, this guy's never going to kill. But I remember the one moment was Mean Street. That's when he was just like, that's it, it's over. Fourth grade album in a row. That's how the album opens. You kidding me? It's over. Eddie wins. That's it. I don't want to hear about Kiss anymore. That's it. So at number 7, for him and all the other Van Halen fans, including me, undeniable, even all these 37 years later, from Fair Warning on my trunk top 20, number 7 is Mean Street. And Ed, I think you got to take it from the top. So you got it in reverse.
Yeah, pretty much.
You're not on an acid trip in 81. You just got that in reverse. But Mean Street, number 7 of the greatness that is Van Halen. So again, quick rundown, catch up to speed, depending upon you just coming into the mix. And remember, if you miss any of the show, you can always get it on demand on the SiriusXM app. Get caught up, listen to it in its entirety. That's this show or any of my shows. Live 2 to 4, replay 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, on demand on the app. So I'll give you a quick little rundown after the break, and we'll get into number 6. Again, remember tomorrow, your chance to sound off about this delight at 11. Light Up the Sky at 10. Yeah, 10 at Light Up the Sky. 9, Somebody Get Me a Doctor. 8, Hear About It Later. 7, Mean Street. And now we get into the top 3, or the top 6 on the trunk top 20 of Van Halen. And we go back to women and children first. As I mentioned earlier and a few times, for me, if I had to pick a second favorite Van Halen album, it would probably be this one from 1980. So many great memories, such a great time in my childhood, such a great album that holds up remarkably well still today. Everything about it was killer. Of course, who could forget the poster of Roth shackled up to the fence inside of it? I mean, all the great moments of taking that record out of the sleeve and dropping the needle and hearing all those great tunes. So for me, one of my favorites from Women and Children First is the final song on the record. I love the quick 3-minute Van Halen rockers that just get right to the point and get into it. But I really loved when they had some different moments in the songs. And, you know, started and had these different sort of intros and breakdowns and different things like that. And, of course, I always loved the great harmonies. Who didn't? Much of them supplied by Michael Anthony. And on this song, Michael Anthony really shines on the high harmony. It was always one of my favorite VH songs. It's the final song on Women and Children First, track number 9, In a Simple Rhyme. I don't know where you're going to take this from, Ed, because there's